The greatest threat to your peace is not the world outside, it is the storm inside your own mind. Your need to be understood, your fear of being alone, your attachment to people, outcomes, and approval. These feel human, but unchecked, they quietly steal your power. Buddhism has warned us for centuries. Emotions without awareness become chains. What you cling to, you suffer for. Imagine waking up free, able to detach yourself, to detach from people and situations, no longer shaken by loss or praise. This is not coldness. This is Buddhist wisdom. To master detachment, to understand how to death to ego, is the heart of Buddhist teachings and the law of detachment. Before we begin, subscribe to Deep Wisdom, where every video opens a doorway to calm, clarity, and timeless Buddhist insight you will not find anywhere else. If you want real detachment in 2026, stay. There is a powerful bonus lesson at the end. 1. Why attachment secretly weakens the mind. Wanting something deeply feels like strength, but quietly, almost invisibly, it weakens the mind. Because the moment your peace depends on an outcome, your inner balance is no longer yours. You begin to live on conditions, and a conditioned mind is never at rest. In the teachings of the awakened ones, suffering does not begin with loss. It begins with clinging. The mind tightens around people, outcomes, identities, and futures. What you grip starts to control you. What you fear losing starts to rule your thoughts. This is how attachment turns love into anxiety, ambition into restlessness, and hope into pressure. When the hand refuses to open, pain becomes permanent. This is not poetry, it is psychological truth. Attachment does not hurt because things leave. It hurts because the mind demands that they stay. And the world does not obey demands. It moves, changes, and dissolves. When your peace argues with reality, reality always wins. Imagine holding water in a closed fist. The harder you squeeze, the faster it escapes. Attachment works the same way. The more you grip a relationship, the more fragile it becomes. The more desperately you chase success, the more tense and fearful you grow. What was meant to support you begins to drain you. Pause here. Feel your hands. Slowly unclench them. Notice how effort dissolves into ease. This is not weakness, this is intelligence. Detachment is not giving up. It is releasing the illusion that control creates safety. Ask yourself gently, what am I holding on to out of fear, not love? Who am I without this attachment? What pain am I protecting instead of healing? These questions are uncomfortable because they expose dependence. And dependence is the root of mental fragility. In modern life, attachment hides behind productivity, validation, and constant comparison. You attach to outcomes at work, to approval in relationships, to an image of who you think you must become. Each attachment adds weight to the mind. Over time, clarity bends, presence weakens, you feel busy yet empty. Here is the practice. Notice the moment craving arises. Do not suppress it. Do not obey it. Observe it. Feel it in the body. Let it rise and fall without feeding it a story. This is how strength is rebuilt. A mind that can watch desire without collapsing into it becomes unshakable. Detachment is not coldness. It is freedom from being owned. When you stop needing life to go your way, life stops feeling like a threat. Peace does not arrive when you finally hold everything. It arrives the moment you stop gripping and trust yourself enough to let go. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "Detachment is the game changer." Desire is not the enemy. Clinging is. Desire has been misunderstood for centuries. Many believe peace demands the death of wanting. But the awakened mind never fought desire. It learned how to let it move. The real enemy was never the wish itself. It was the hand that tried to trap it. The moment desire is chained to possession, the mind stiffens and freedom quietly disappears. Why was desire never condemned? Because desire is movement. It is the energy that pulls you forward, helps you grow, and invites experience. But clinging freezes that movement. Desire flows, clinging freezes. One is alive, the other is fear pretending to be love. Picture a river moving freely past you. It nourishes the land, reflects the sky, and never asks permission to continue. Now imagine building a dam across it, then blaming the water for the pressure that follows. Desire is that river. Attachment is the wall you build, and then suffer behind. In relationships, you don't want connection, you want certainty. In work, you don't want excellence, you want control over results. This is where desire quietly transforms into ownership. The mind stops trusting life and starts managing it, and management is exhausting. Sit with this truth. Wanting without possession feels spacious. It has breath in it. Wanting with fear feels tight, impatient, and loud. Notice where your desires have turned into contracts with reality. Where has hope become pressure? Where has love become leverage? The practice is subtle. When desire arises, allow it to be felt fully, but remove the demand. Say inwardly, "This may come or it may pass." Not with indifference, with dignity. This single shift weakens fear at its root. The mind learns it can survive without guarantees. Ask yourself honestly, where has desire turned into control? What would wanting without fear feel like in your body? Can you allow something to exist without owning it, fixing it, or locking it into place? These questions are doors. Walk through them slowly. There is a hidden strength here. A person who wants without clinging becomes magnetic. Not because they chase less, but because they suffocate nothing. Life moves more freely around them. People feel less pressured. Outcomes feel less heavy, and the heart remains open even when things change. This is the turning point. Desire does not need to be killed. It needs to be trusted to flow. When you stop damming the river, peace does not have to be forced. It arrives naturally, quiet, steady, and unafraid to move on. 3. Die before you die. Fear does not disappear when life becomes safe. It disappears when the one who needs safety is seen clearly. This is why the ancient teaching speaks of dying before you die. Not the death of the body, but the quiet ending of the false self you protect every day. The one that needs approval, certainty, and control in order to feel real. Only what you believe yourself to be can suffer. Read that slowly. Suffering clings to identity, to labels, roles, images, and stories you repeat until they feel solid. When those stories are threatened, fear rises. Not because something essential is in danger, but because the mask feels glued to your skin. The ego is a mask worn so long, we forget the face beneath it. You call yourself successful, rejected, strong, broken, spiritual, ordinary. Then you spend your life defending the costume. Every criticism feels like an attack. Every change feels like loss. This is not life, it is performance. And performance is exhausting. Pause. Imagine removing a heavy robe you've worn for years. Feel the weight slide off your shoulders. Notice the breath deepen. This is what happens when identity loosens. Nothing meaningful is taken away, only tension leaves. Ask yourself honestly, who am I afraid of losing? The achiever, the caretaker, the one who always knows? Which identity are you defending when you feel offended, anxious, or unseen? These reactions reveal the cage, not as punishment, but as protection that has outlived its purpose. In modern life, identity is constantly reinforced. Social roles, productivity, opinions, online images. You are taught to become someone and maintain it. But peace does not live in maintenance. It lives in openness. When the need to be someone softens, presence becomes possible. Here is the practice. When fear arises, do not ask, "How do I fix this?" Ask, "Who feels threatened right now?" Sit with the question. Watch the image that appears. Let it be seen without defending it. This gentle seeing is the beginning of freedom. Something unexpected happens when identity loosens. Compassion increases. You listen more. You react less. The world no longer feels like a courtroom where you must prove your worth. You begin to respond instead of perform. So what actually dies when fear disappears? Not you, only the illusion you were guarding. And what remains is not emptiness, it is lightness, clarity, and a quiet confidence that does not need to introduce itself. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type "Detachment is the game changer." Emotional pain lives in the future. Emotional pain rarely lives where your body is. It lives where your thoughts travel. Anxiety speaks in tomorrow's voice because fear does not survive in the present. It needs imagination to exist. Right now, as you are breathing, nothing is missing. The discomfort you feel is not from this moment, but from a future you are rehearsing without rest. The present moment has no expectations. Read that slowly. The now does not demand success, certainty, or reassurance. Only the mind does. Expectation is the mind bargaining with life, asking it to promise safety before peace is allowed. This negotiation never ends because the future never arrives the way it was imagined. Expectation is a shadow cast by a future that has not arrived. You chase the shadow, not realizing the body creating it is your own thinking. When you expect a person to behave a certain way, a result to arrive on time, or yourself to feel confident before acting, you delay peace. Not because peace is difficult, but because permission is withheld. Return attention to your breath. Notice how peace exists only here. Not as excitement, not as relief, but as neutrality, as steadiness. The body understands this truth instinctively. It settles when the mind stops projecting. Ask yourself quietly, what outcome am I negotiating with life right now? What am I waiting to happen before I allow myself to relax? These questions reveal how often effort is mixed with demand, and demand turns action into pressure. Here is the shift. Effort does not require expectation. You can act fully without needing control over results. You can prepare, work, speak, and care without asking life to reward you in a specific way. This is where detachment becomes power. The mind stops arguing with uncertainty and starts moving with clarity. In relationships, expectation sounds like silent contracts. In work, it sounds like fear of failure disguised as motivation. In personal growth, it sounds like impatience with your own pace. Each one pulls you away from the only place peace can exist, now. The practice is simple, but not easy. Each time the mind jumps ahead, bring it back to sensation. Breath, sound, weight of the body. Do not scold the mind, just return. This repeated return trains freedom. What happens if you stop expecting? Life does not collapse, it opens. Action becomes lighter. Anxiety loses its fuel. You still care, but you no longer beg. Effort remains, but demand dissolves. Peace is not found by securing the future. It is found by releasing it. The moment you stop asking tomorrow to guarantee your calm, today finally becomes enough. 5. Attachment versus love. Attachment often disguises itself as love. It uses the same language, the same closeness, the same intensity. But watch its behavior closely, and fear reveals itself. Attachment needs reassurance. It needs permanence. It needs the other to stay the same so you can feel safe. Love does not need these guarantees. Attachment asks, love allows. Sit with that difference. Attachment says, stay, choose me, don't change. Love says, be who you are, even if that means moving. One tightens the chest, the other expands it. One negotiates with fear, the other rests in trust. Why does attachment feel like love? Because both care deeply. But attachment is care mixed with self-preservation. It loves not only the person, but the way they make you feel about yourself. When that feeling is threatened, anxiety replaces warmth. Control replaces presence. Imagine tying a bird gently to your wrist. You tell yourself it's for closeness. But the bird feels the pull. It becomes restless. You feel tense. Neither of you is free. Attachment works the same way. Love, on the other hand, opens the window. It risks flight because it values life more than possession. Picture someone you love, free, unowned, unchanged by your expectations. Notice the relief in your chest when you release the need to manage their path. That relief is not distance, it is respect. It is the quiet confidence that connection does not require captivity. Ask yourself honestly, where have I confused need with love? Who am I afraid of losing, not because of love, but because of what their absence would force me to feel? These answers are uncomfortable because they reveal dependence, but awareness is the doorway to real intimacy. In daily life, attachment shows up as overthinking texts, fearing silence, needing validation, or shaping yourself to be chosen. Love shows up as listening, honesty, and the courage to let things unfold without manipulation. One clings to outcomes, the other commits to truth. Here is the practice. When fear arises around someone you care about, pause before reacting. Feel the fear in the body without acting on it. Ask, is this love or is this protection? Then choose the response that gives space instead of pressure. This is how attachment softens. Something powerful happens when love is freed from grasping. Relationships breathe. Conflict loses its poison. You show up more fully because you are no longer bargaining for security. You are offering presence. Can love exist without possession? Yes, and only then does it become steady. Attachment says, don't leave me. Love says, be whole, even if that means change. And in that allowance, peace enters, not as loss, but as a deeper, quieter bond that does not need to hold to remain real. 6. Detaching from people without becoming cold. Detachment is often misunderstood as withdrawal, as if freedom requires distance, silence, or emotional shutdown. But true detachment does not make you colder, it makes you clearer. Coldness comes from fear. Detachment comes from understanding, and understanding allows warmth to remain without suffocation. Freedom strengthens what dependence weakens. When you depend on someone to stabilize your emotions, the relationship carries weight it was never meant to hold. Small changes feel threatening. Silence feels personal. You react not to what is happening, but to what you fear losing. Detachment removes this pressure. Imagine two trees growing side by side. If their roots twist tightly around each other, both are weakened. Growth is stunted. But when each root system has space, both trees rise taller. This is how healthy connection works. Space does not break bonds, it nourishes them. See the space between you and others, not emptiness. Breathing room. In that space, respect grows, listening deepens. You are no longer scanning for reassurance, you are present. This presence is what people feel as warmth. Ask yourself gently, who am I trying to complete myself through? Who am I leaning on to avoid sitting with my own emotions? When you see this clearly, blame dissolves. You understand that attachment was never about them. It was about avoiding your own discomfort. Detaching from people does not mean leaving them. It means releasing the inner demand that they behave a certain way for you to be okay. When you choose someone instead of needing them, your words soften, your reactions slow. You stop grasping and start responding. Here is the practice. When emotional tension arises in a relationship, pause. Do not pull away, do not cling. Name the feeling silently. Let it pass through without turning it into a story. Then respond from clarity, not urgency. This is how detachment deepens connection instead of ending it. Something subtle shifts when need dissolves. Conversations become honest. Boundaries stop feeling like rejection. You allow others to be human instead of functional. And paradoxically, people feel safer around you because they are no longer responsible for your inner balance. Can you stay connected without attachment? Yes. And this is the turning point. Connection built on freedom is resilient. It does not panic when things change. It does not collapse when expectations fail. It adapts. Detachment is not distance. It is self-sufficiency meeting love. When you stop asking others to complete you, you finally have something real to offer. And in that clarity, relationships do not shrink. They mature, deepen, and breathe. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "Detachment is the game changer." 7. The law of detachment. Chasing creates noise, and noise scatters the mind. This is why the most grounded people rarely pursue with desperation. They move, but they do not lunge. They act, but they do not beg. Stillness has a gravity of its own. Life responds differently to someone who is not pleading with it. What does not beg becomes magnetic. This is not mysticism. It is clarity. When you stop forcing outcomes, your energy stabilizes. Your words slow, your presence deepens. People sense this, opportunities sense this. Not because you are trying less, but because you are no longer leaking urgency. Life approaches those who stop reaching. Reaching implies lack. It signals to the mind that something essential is missing. Stillness, on the other hand, communicates trust. And trust reorganizes how effort flows. Action becomes clean. Intentions become sharp. Resistance softens. Sit still for a moment. Notice how everything moves around you. Breath, sound, sensation. You do not command any of it, yet it happens. This is the same law that governs alignment. When the inner state settles, the outer world responds without struggle. Ask yourself quietly, where am I forcing life right now? Where am I pushing conversations, outcomes, or timelines because silence feels uncomfortable? Forcing is not strength. It is impatience wearing discipline's clothes. The law of detachment does not tell you to stop acting. It tells you to stop clinging to results. When effort is driven by fear, it exhausts you. When effort flows from clarity, it energizes you. One chases approval, the other attracts respect. In work, this looks like doing your best without obsessing over recognition. In relationships, it looks like expressing truth without chasing reassurance. In personal growth, it looks like practicing daily without demanding immediate transformation. Alignment replaces strain. What would trust look like today, not as belief, but as behavior? It might look like pausing before reacting, like letting a message go unanswered for a while, like doing the work without checking who noticed. These are not small acts. They rewire the nervous system from grasping to grounding. Here is the deeper truth. When you stop reaching, you become available. Not empty, available. Your attention returns to the present. Your choices sharpen. Life meets you there, not because you pulled it closer, but because you stopped running ahead of it. Can alignment replace effort? It can replace force. Effort remains, but it becomes quiet, precise, and sustainable. Stillness is not inactivity. It is power without tension. The moment you stop begging life to arrive, life begins to move toward you, unannounced, unforced, and exactly on time. Why forcing outcomes pushes them away? Forcing feels like effort, and effort feels responsible. But notice how often trying harder creates tension instead of progress. This is not because you lack discipline, it is because control creates resistance. The more tightly the mind clenches, the less it can receive. The mind clenched in effort cannot receive. When you force an outcome, you send a message inward that the present moment is insufficient. From that message, impatience grows, fear enters, subtle aggression replaces clarity. What you pursue begins to pull away, not because it is cruel, but because pressure distorts perception. Why does trying harder often make things worse? Because force comes from mistrust. It assumes life will not move unless you squeeze it into place. This squeezing closes perception. You stop listening. You stop adjusting. You miss timing. Control blinds the intelligence that already exists within you. A closed door cannot be entered, even by blessings. You may stand in front of it praying, pushing, demanding, but nothing passes through a locked mind. Control locks the door from the inside. It believes safety comes from holding tighter, when safety actually comes from responsiveness. Imagine unlocking and opening a door within you, not throwing it wide, just loosening it enough for air to move. Feel the relief in your chest when effort softens into attention. This is not giving up. This is making space for guidance instead of noise. Ask yourself honestly, what am I trying to control right now? A person's response, a timeline, an image of how things should unfold. Control often hides fear of uncertainty, but uncertainty is not the enemy. Resistance to it is. When you loosen your grip, something unexpected happens. You see more options. You hear what was previously drowned out by urgency. Action becomes precise instead of frantic. You still move forward, but without dragging anxiety behind you. Resistance is a teacher, not an obstacle. Where life pushes back, it is often inviting you to soften, not to push harder. When something consistently resists, ask not, how do I overpower this? But, what am I refusing to release? The practice is simple and demanding. Before acting, check your inner state. If the body is tight and the breath shallow, pause. Let the urge pass. Then act from steadiness. Actions born from calm travel further than actions born from pressure. Forcing outcomes pushes them away because it forgets timing. It forgets rhythm. It forgets humility. Life responds best to a mind that is firm in direction but loose in demand. When you stop trying to bend reality, reality stops resisting you. And in that quiet cooperation, progress becomes effortless, not because you did less, but because you finally allowed life to meet you halfway. 9. Detachment makes you untouchable. When your worth is no longer at stake, something radical happens. Life still moves, people still speak, outcomes still change, but none of it pierces the center. Detachment does not make you numb, it makes you untouchable, because nothing essential is up for defense anymore. When there is nothing to protect, there is nothing to fear. Fear needs a vulnerable image to guard. It needs reputation, identity, and approval to stand watch over. When these no longer define you, fear loses its job. The nervous system settles, the mind stops rehearsing attacks that never come. An empty cup cannot be spilled. Insults slide past it. Praise does not inflate it. Success does not intoxicate it. Failure does not poison it. This is not indifference, it is stability. The cup remains useful precisely because it is not clinging to its contents. Feel your chest soften. Notice the absence of defense. The tightening you once called vigilance relaxes. You listen without preparing a response. You act without rehearsing justification. This is what inner security feels like. Not loud, not proud, just steady. Ask yourself quietly, what criticism still controls me? Whose approval am I unconsciously seeking? These attachments reveal where your worth is still being negotiated. And as long as worth is debated, peace is delayed. Detachment removes the need to prove. When you stop arguing for your value, others feel it. You become harder to manipulate, not because you resist, but because there is nothing to hook into. Guilt loses leverage. Comparison loses its bite. In daily life, this shows up as calm under pressure. You receive feedback without collapsing. You walk away from disrespect without rage. You no longer chase validation or retreat into resentment. You choose responses instead of reactions. Here is the practice. When triggered, ask one question. What am I defending right now? Watch the answer appear. Name it, then release it. This single act dissolves hours of inner conflict. Defense consumes energy. Clarity returns it. Something deeper unfolds over time. Self-acceptance stops being a concept and becomes a posture. You stand without armor. You speak without rehearsal. You allow mistakes without shame. This is not weakness, it is grounded confidence. What freedom follows self-acceptance? The freedom to be misunderstood and still at peace. The freedom to succeed without arrogance and fail without collapse. The freedom to move through life without constantly checking your reflection in other people's eyes. Detachment makes you untouchable because it removes the battlefield. When there is nothing to defend, life can no longer threaten you. And in that quiet invulnerability, peace is no longer something you seek, it is something you become. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "Detachment is the game changer." Everything is happening in the mind. The same event can shatter one person and quietly free another. The difference is not the event, it is the mind that receives it. Everything you experience passes through interpretation first. Pain, joy, offense, relief, none arrive raw. They are filtered, shaped, and colored by thought. The world only mirrors the mind. What you call reality is often reflection. When the mind is agitated, life feels hostile. When the mind is calm, the same circumstances feel manageable, even instructive. The outer world rarely changes as fast as the inner lens through which you view it. The mind is a lens. If it is scratched with fear, everything looks threatening. If it is clouded by expectation, nothing feels enough. Clean the lens, and reality does not become perfect. It becomes clear. and clarity reduces suffering more than control ever could. Watch thoughts rise and fade like clouds. One moment they announce danger. The next moment they dissolve without consequence. Notice how little effort this requires. You are not pushing them away. You are not obeying them. You are witnessing. This witnessing is the beginning of detachment. Ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? Is this thought absolute truth or a habit learned through repetition? Most suffering survives because it is believed without question. Once questioned, it weakens. Once observed, it loses authority. Here is the practice. When a thought arises, especially one charged with emotion, pause. Name it silently. Planning, judging, fearing, remembering. This small act separates awareness from content. You are no longer inside the thought, you are looking at it. This shift changes everything. Situations lose their power to define you. Words lose their sting. The past loosens its grip. You stop arguing with life because you stop mistaking thoughts for commands. Why does this matter for detachment? Because attachment is not to things, it is to interpretations. You are not attached to a person. You are attached to how the mind narrates their presence. You are not attached to success. You are attached to the story of what it proves. Change the story and attachment dissolves. Can you observe without believing? Try now. Let a thought pass without finishing it. Feel the space that follows. That space is peace, not manufactured, not earned, just uncovered. The final freedom is simple and demanding. Look inward before you react outward. Clean the lens daily. Question the story. Return to awareness. When you stop fighting the world and start understanding the mind, detachment becomes natural, and peace stops being a goal in the future. It becomes the quiet ground beneath every experience, steady, unshaken, and already here. 11. Real detachment is inner stillness. Detachment is often mistaken for stepping away from life, but real detachment does not ask you to withdraw. It asks you to arrive fully without carrying the weight of resistance. What if detachment changes nothing externally, yet transforms everything internally? What if the world stays the same, but you no longer tremble inside it? True detachment leaves you fully present. Presence is not escape. It is engagement without entanglement. You speak, work, love, and decide, yet something within remains still. That stillness is not indifference. It is clarity that does not get dragged by every emotion. The lotus touches water but is never soaked. It grows in the same conditions as the mud around it, yet remains clean. Detachment works this way. You participate in the world, but you do not absorb its chaos. You allow contact without allowing possession. Remain in the moment, engaged yet unattached. Notice how attention sharpens when you are not bracing for outcomes. You listen more deeply. You respond instead of react. Action becomes precise because it is no longer rushed by fear. Ask yourself, can I participate without clinging? Can I care without tightening? These questions do not remove responsibility. They refine it. When clinging dissolves, effort becomes cleaner. You do what is needed, then let the moment complete itself. In daily life, inner stillness looks ordinary. You handle pressure without collapsing. You face criticism without shrinking. You enjoy success without fearing its loss. Nothing dramatic happens, and that is the proof. Peace does not announce itself, it simply remains. Here is the practice. Before engaging in any task or conversation, pause for one breath. Feel the body. Let urgency settle. Enter the moment without demanding an outcome. This single breath keeps you rooted while everything moves. What does peace feel like in action? It feels like grounded speed, like caring deeply without gripping, like being fully involved without being consumed. You are here, but not trapped here. Something subtle shifts when stillness becomes your center. Even conflict loses its edge. You no longer need to win to feel whole. You no longer need agreement to feel steady. You stay open because there is nothing to defend. Who are you when nothing shakes you? Not distant, not detached from life. You are attentive, capable, and calm. You move through the world without friction inside yourself. Real detachment is not distance. It is inner stillness carried into action. When you stop needing life to behave a certain way, you finally meet it as it is. And in that meeting, peace is not something you search for. It is how you stand. Bonus principle: when nothing affects you anymore. There comes a moment when reactions slow down, not because you suppress them, but because they no longer find anything to hook into. When nothing affects you anymore, life does not become dull. It becomes spacious. The noise fades. The need to respond, explain, defend, or prove quietly ends. What is left when reactions end? Not emptiness, sovereignty, a calm authority over your inner world. When reactions ruled you, every word had power, every situation demanded energy. Now you decide what deserves your attention, and most things do not. Silence is the final answer. Not silence of avoidance, but silence of completion. The kind that comes when the mind no longer needs to win. Arguments end not because you are right, but because you are done. Peace does not need justification. A mountain does not argue with the wind. Storms pass, seasons change. The mountain remains. It does not tense when clouds gather or celebrate when the sky clears. This is not arrogance, it is rootedness. When you stop negotiating with every emotional gust, stability becomes natural. Feel stillness beneath every emotion. Anger may rise, sadness may appear, joy may visit. But beneath them all, something unmoving remains. This is what detachment reveals. Not absence of feeling, but depth beneath it. You feel fully, yet nothing throws you off center. Ask yourself, what no longer deserves my reaction? Not everything needs engagement. Not every trigger needs a response. Energy is precious. Sovereignty begins the moment you stop spending it on what cannot give peace in return. What happens when you stop resisting life? Life stops pushing back. Resistance creates friction. Acceptance creates flow. This does not mean you approve of everything. It means you stop arguing with what already exists. Action becomes effective when inner resistance dissolves. In daily life, this looks simple. You hear criticism and breathe. You face delays and remain steady. You experience loss and do not collapse into identity. You respond when needed. You rest when not. Nothing dramatic. Everything changes. Here is the practice. When something arises that once controlled you, pause. Do nothing. Feel the impulse to react and let it pass. Notice how power returns the moment you do not obey the urge. This is not suppression. This is mastery. Is this what freedom feels like? Quiet, grounded, unshaken. You still care, but you are no longer captive. You still engage, but you are not dragged. When nothing affects you anymore, life does not lose meaning. It gains clarity. You move like the mountain, present, patient, unmoved by noise. And in that stillness, you realize, peace was never something to achieve. It was what remained when resistance ended. Quick summary of the principles. Why attachment secretly weakens the mind. Attachment creates dependence, not security. The mind becomes fragile when peace relies on outcomes. Clinging increases fear of loss. Freedom begins when nothing is required for wholeness. Desire is not the enemy. Clinging is. Desire is natural and neutral. Suffering arises when desire becomes identity. Wanting does not bind, insisting does. Detachment allows desire without fear. Die before you die. Ego death is the release of false identity. Fear dissolves when there is nothing to protect. The self you defend is the self that suffers. What remains is awareness, not absence. Emotional pain lives in the future. Anxiety is rooted in imagined outcomes. The present moment carries no psychological burden. Expectation creates pressure where none exists. Detachment returns the mind to now. Attachment versus love. Attachment seeks completion through others. Love exists without ownership or demand. Needing creates imbalance in connection. Detachment restores dignity to love. Detaching from people without becoming cold. Detachment removes dependence, not care. Clarity replaces emotional confusion. Relationships become conscious choices. Presence deepens when need dissolves. The law of detachment. Chasing creates resistance within the mind. Stillness aligns you with life's rhythm. Non-attachment strengthens inner authority. Life responds to grounded presence. Why forcing outcomes? Pushes them away. Control is rooted in fear, not strength. Effort without attachment is most effective. Forcing disconnects you from flow. Trust restores natural movement. Detachment makes you untouchable. When worth is internal, nothing threatens it. Criticism loses power over identity. Detachment removes emotional vulnerability. Inner stability replaces defense. Everything is happening in the mind. Events are neutral. Interpretation creates suffering. The mind shapes emotional reality. Observation weakens destructive thought patterns. Awareness restores choice. Real detachment is inner stillness. Detachment does not require withdrawal from life. It is freedom within engagement. Presence remains intact amid activity. Peace becomes stable, not conditional. Bonus: when nothing affects you anymore, reaction fades, awareness remains. Life is no longer negotiated or resisted. Inner authority becomes natural. This is mature spiritual freedom. Detachment is not the loss of meaning. It is the end of inner conflict. When you stop demanding that life meet your expectations, life no longer feels heavy. Peace is not something you achieve through effort. It is what remains when unnecessary resistance dissolves. In Zen philosophy, freedom is not found by escaping the world, but by releasing the mind's need to control it. When nothing is clung to, nothing can be taken away. Quote, "When you let go of who you think you must be, you become who you are." As you move forward into 2026, carry this question quietly within you. What am I still holding on to that no longer serves my peace? If this teaching resonated, take a moment to like and share this video. Share your reflections in the comment box, and subscribe to Deep Wisdom for more inspiring Buddhist insights on living a calm, conscious, and peaceful life.